Well, I'm not one to typically use Breitbart as a source because typically the articles are a bit derivative and biased. No disrespect, Breitbart. I just would rather go straight to, say, the Wall Street Journal, for instance. Not that they're not potentially biased as well. They've run several articles about PewDiePie. But the original article is PayPal CEO grapples with fringe groups. Dan Schulman explains who gets booted and why. The story the story gets into how they determine who and who doesn't get banned for social issues and obvious things like that. But PayPal gets right into it. So we'll start a little bit with the Wall Street Journal, but I will jump over to Breitbart. They say, most of the roughly 21 million merchants that use PayPal Holdings services to sell things over the internet are inoffensive types, mom and pop shops on eBay, marketplace, retailers like Target Corp and Apple, etc. Then there's Infowars and Gab.com, websites associated with far right-wing individuals and groups that have been accused of promoting hate speech. Each of the websites have been notified this past fall that PayPal would stop processing payments for their affiliated stores or donation pages. For Infowars, which publishes the discredited conspiracy theories of its founder, provocateur Alex Jones, the cutoff came after a PayPal review found that Infowars promoted hate and discriminatory intolerance. For Gab, the PayPal ban came after it was revealed that the suspect in the attack on a Pittsburgh synagogue in October appeared to have posted anti-Semitic notes on Gab's messaging platform. Now, here's the thing. This is it's actually really disconcerting because the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter, he was also a user of Twitter, and my understanding is Facebook too. And my understanding is he posted similar things on Twitter as well, and they weren't taken down. And so this brings up a very important question of who is allowed to have a social media platform. The reality is not you if you are associated with libertarianism, the right, or you would allow these people to post, only if you're a startup, right? So Twitter argues they don't allow these things, but admittedly Gab says they don't as well. But there's a difference in terms of policing. Gab's been accused of a lot of things, so I'm not here to defend Gab, but a lot of these companies will look to Twitter and Twitter says, oh, don't worry, we'll get rid of it, even if they don't. Gab says it, but I guess because they're a startup or because they've been smeared in the press, there's no way they'll get a foothold. So let's go back to the Breitbart article and take a look at the more direct issue, and that's PayPal CEO admits partnership with far-left SPLC to blacklist conservatives. Now, here's the thing about Breitbart. I don't think he's admitting to a partnership. They're trying to make it seem like it's a secret. The dude openly talked about how he goes by what the SPLC says. And I got to say, look, there's a lot of companies, they don't know anything about the SPLC, right? They just think, oh, this tracks hate groups. Great, we'll go with them. But one of the problems I have with the Southern Poverty Law Center, aside from the fact that they wrote a completely insane article, which included me, where they used a Holocaust-denying website archive, not even the real thing because it didn't exist, to claim I had traveled to Iran to speak at a Holocaust deniers website. Sorry, SPLC, if that's what you think is proof of hate, woof, they had to take it down. And I'm going to assume they took it down partly because of that the standard of the SPLC in terms of publishing content is Iranian Holocaust-denying archives. Congratulations. But they did take it down, they did apologize, and they did refer to me as an individual on the left, so I can appreciate that. So this guy, I'm pretty sure the PayPal CEO has no idea the SPLC has done that and many other things. In fact, following that whole controversy, where they accused anti-war leftists of being in line with the far right, which makes literally no sense. That was like the gist of the article. The Southern Poverty Law Center actually published an article that claimed leftist, pro-Venezuelan anti-war activists, including individuals associated with people who literally work for the Venezuelan government, okay, they accused them of being in line with the far right. I kid you not. I'm sorry. If whatever you want to claim about hate, you cannot okay, I'm going to stop there. SPLC was threatened with a lawsuit. They deleted that article and several others by the same person. At a certain point, you have to realize they off their rocker. I don't think the PayPal CEO knows this. I don't think he cares or pays attention to this stuff. Most people aren't working in this area. What we have here is likely a dude who's working in tech and someone calls him up and says, hey, X, Y, and Z. And he goes, I don't know. What is, and they're like, well, here's an organization that tracks hate groups. They say it's hate group. Goes, okay, great. We'll go with them, right? they're not experts, and this is presenting us with a huge problem. And I'm going to get into more depth in this later today, potentially on my main channel, because I'm thinking of doing something about the new this new service Gab launched called Dissenter. And I'm growing really concerned with the shadow internet and shadow economy that's emerging. These are requirements for civil war. Parallel economies and parallel community gatherings and things like that need to exist in order for a real conflict to happen. So it's disconcerting, but I'll get into that later. Let's read through this real quick. PayPal CEO Dan Schulman admitted during an interview with the Wall Street Journal that PayPal works with the far-left Southern Poverty Law Center when it considers blacklisting conservatives. Now, I would absolutely agree that the Southern Poverty Law Center, in my opinion, is a far-left extremist organization. And I'm not saying that because I don't like them or I'm biased against them. I actually really respect that they apologized to Majid Nawaz. They paid him out of settlement. And they actually apologized to me when they falsely labeled me. But I will say this. If the leadership at the Southern Poverty Law Center is blind to the fact that they're hiring violent extremists, and they are, right? The guy who wrote the article about me is a pro-Antifa, guy up in Portland. And if I was going to look, we've seen the violence from Antifa in Portland. We've seen Bernie Sanders voters get clubbed over the head. We've seen the New Jersey Department of Homeland Security label them a terrorist organization. Portland has a branded cell of Antifa that has their own merchandise. If Southern Poverty Law Center is hiring these people, then yes, right? They are falling into far left extremism. Look, I don't take issue with people who are far left, right? If you're far left, that's fine. But if you're a violent far left authoritarian, that's a problem. You want to be a far right traditionalist or free market capitalist, that's fine too, up until you get into authoritarianism. The real problem isn't the ideology, it's the tactics they use behind it and their willingness to oppress people to get what they want. The Southern Poverty Law Center has fallen into the authoritarian spectrum by bringing on people who advocate for violence or for people who are associated. I should clarify that. People who are associated with groups advocating openly for violence and lying. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center did get rid of that guy, but I can only assume that their standards are in that direction. Like there's other people that are probably involved based on their history. After being asked by the Wall Street Journal what values PayPal identifies with, Schulman replied, "Probably the most important value to us is diversity and inclusion. I think North Carolina was probably the moment that was the most visible, where we basically said this violates our core value and we need to make a very public stand on it," claimed Schulman, referencing the time when PayPal pulled out of an investment in North Carolina because the state passed a bill making it mandatory for people to use the bathroom of their biological sex. Businesses need to be a force for good in those values and issues that they believe in. It shouldn't come from backlash or people taking heat on it, because then it's in response as opposed to the definition of who you are and yada yada. Okay, that's great. The PayPal CEO expressed, adding that in Charlottesville rally 2017 was a defining moment for PayPal to start blacklisting conservatives. Yes, I don't think he said conservatives, and I think this is why I don't use Breitbart. Listen. Do you really want to conflate Charlottesville with conservatives? Please, come on, let's not do that. Schulman claimed it was a defining moment for us as a company that was difficult because the line between free speech and hate, nobody teaches it to you in college. Nobody's defined it in law. That's absolutely not true. It is absolutely defined in law. In fact, the law states there is no hate. Like hate speech is not, it is defined. It absolutely is. And they've determined that it's protected speech. There are those both on the right and the left that help us. Southern Poverty Law Center has brought things. We don't always agree. We have debates with them. We are very respectful with everyone coming in. We will do the examination carefully, Schulman explained. We'll talk when we don't agree with a finding. We understand why you think that way, but it still goes into the realm of free speech for us. Now here's another really important point. And again, I got to say, this is why I don't use Breitbart. His quote shows that he's not blanketly just like, it's not a blanket acceptance of what the Southern Poverty Law Center does. I am no fan of PayPal, okay? I do use them. I can respect the idea of diversity and inclusion because that's what our country is, the great melting pot we're founded on, giving everyone the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All for it. I don't agree with PayPal banning certain individuals because of their political ideology. But to take this quote and act like he's saying the Southern Poverty Law, like, he is clearly not saying the SPLC is dogma, is law. I will still point out, listen, if Breitbart framed this more rationally, I'd be more inclined to say, like, okay, Breitbart, do I like that anyone would use the Southern Poverty Law Center as a source? Of course not. I just went into great detail about how they used a Holocaust denier website to claim that I've never been to Iran. Okay, like Medea Benjamin was apparently at this conference, and I've talked about it before. I believe it may stem from I don't know where they got the information, but I was working with Vice on potentially doing a documentary in the country, and then they tried to claim that I actually attended this event and spoke on like it's absolutely insane, and it shows the SPLC has almost no standards. And they had to take it down and apologize for it. Okay, but to act like this is them saying we use the SPLC outright. No, he's giving some pushback. I still don't like the idea that he used them at all because I think they're off their rockers, especially after the Majid Nawaz thing. Their credibility should be in the trash. But Breitbart does go on to say that the SPLC works with Amazon, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and they mentioned that they were forced to pay out. So look. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I'm working on a story about parallel communities. And I think that the trends, especially set by PayPal, are going to do PayPal and Twitter. I will say this to you right now. You seem to be doing everything in your power to destroy the fabric of our society and push us towards violent civil conflict. One of the things that has to happen before there can actually be real conflict is parallel economies. If we get to a point where someone can't live, eat, drink, have an apartment because you've excised them from the economy, they're not going to go away. And people like this, people like the PayPal CEO are they're oblivious to what they're doing. When you excise, Laura Loomer or Alex Jones or these people from your platforms, you are not getting rid of them. You're doing everything to make it worse, okay? I have talked about the path to forgiveness and the importance of it to make sure people can exist within your society. Otherwise, you will end up with systems that exist outside of the economy, okay? Cryptocurrencies are doing great to allow this to happen faster than ever. People are going to set up their own fundraising platforms. When Visa and MasterCard and PayPal shut them down, they're going to file lawsuits. They're going to make parallel economic systems. And then they won't rely on you, and they will push back harder against you. And then there will be a path to funding more and more separation between the two factions. I'll talk about this later. I'll end here. I think Breitbart went a little, they pushed too hard and they're really biased, but the same could be true for, Vox and Huffington Post. The point is, the more PayPal is willing to not forgive people and to just cut people off because they've received a list from the SPLC or other groups, the worse things are going to get. And I'll expand on this later today, but stick around. I'll have another video up at 1 p.m. I will see you then.